So I would like to begin by thanking you for coming out to take part in a first of many opportunities to engage with us here at NOLA-PS on upcoming changes with our accountability system. So thank you for coming out. I'm Dr. Fulmore, your interim superintendent and superintendent-elect. And I'm here with my amazing, thank you, here with my amazing team, our accountability team led by Mr. Rafael Simmons. And we are delighted to be joined by the one and only Mr. Mena here today with us. You know, no, just take it on. And the community at large that's joining us watching online to talk about something that's really, really, really important to how we serve and educate our children, and some things that we can expect in the what year are we in? The 25-26 school year. It's coming up fast, And so we want to use these opportunities, one, to share information and to make sure that we get your feedback on your experiences. So as we work with our school leaders over the course of the next year, we're rolling all of that up into how we rethink our accountability system and how we think about opportunities that are afforded to our students in schools. So we're excited about that, and we're also excited about some legislative updates and other important information that Rep. Mena will share with us this evening. So sit back and enjoy and engage as appropriate for you, and with that, I will pass it over. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fulmore. Once again, I'm Rafael Simmons. I'm Chief Portfolio Innovation and Accountability Officer. I know that's a mouthful for NOLA Public Schools. I'll be leading and facilitate the presentation and a brief Q&A afterwards as well. But before we dive in, I do want to yield to our interpreters. We do have interpretation services tonight, so I'm going to pass it to Mr. Pham.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Good evening, board members. Good evening, Dr. Fulmore, and members of community. My name is Pham. I will provide interpretation services in Vietnamese. Xin chào toàn thể quý vị, tôi là Việt Quỳnh, tôi là thông dịch viên. Tôi sẽ thông dịch cho quý vị ở buổi họp này nếu quý vị cần. Xin quý vị cho tôi biết. Xin chân thành cảm ơn.
Good evening, my name is Lina Martinez and I will be providing interpretation services for you tonight. Buenas noches, mi nombre es Lina Martínez. Si hay algún miembro de la comunidad que necesite asistencia con interpretación, estamos aquí para servirles.
Thank you. So let's just jump right in. Okay. So school performance scores, those letter grades that are issued every fall, why do we have them and why do we change them? Well, first, it's important that there's information about school performance that is readily available for the community and all of our stakeholders. For instance, families may use the information in deciding where to send their children to school. Organizations can see if a school's methods for targeted improvement are effective or not. And the Louisiana Department of Education, or the LDOE as we affectionately refer to them, create school performance scores, or SPS letter grades, to help stakeholders understand the school's performance. After seeing its current grading system with its strengths and its weaknesses, the LDOE decided to revamp its scoring system to make it easier for the community to understand and to also increase the importance of preparing students for college and or careers. So under the current system, most components of the SPS are based on multiple measures that are combined into several 150-point indices or indicators. In order to find out what makes up each index and how those things are weighted, there are detailed handbooks. You can go deep dive on the website. They need to be reviewed, which is something that most community members are unlikely to do. If you want to parent wants to make a quick decision or a detailed decision about where to send their child to school, we feel like the LDOE felt like this information should be easily accessible and also easier to understand. It's hard to see what the school score is really measuring. And additionally, an individual might see a score of 85, and I know when I was in school, an 85 meant a B, and that was out of 100 points. And first thing I would go to is think about that's 85 out of 100. I'm rocking and rolling. Or you might think that it's 85%. But in our current system, it's actually 85 points out of 150 points available. And so that really equates to 57%. So the scale is could be very misleading for a lot of our stakeholders. Now, the new grading system from the state is designed to be easier for everyone to understand. Rather than having an assessment index or these complicated indices, the scorecard breaks down the percentage of students who are proficient or at grade level in math, English, science, and social studies. It does the same thing for the other two areas on the new scorecard. So what you actually see here, when you see a number next to one of these indicators, it's actually a percentage who met that standard. So it makes the components a lot easier to understand. The current scoring system for elementary and middle schools has 3 or 4 components, depending on whether the school has an 8th grade. The bulk of the score is based on the assessment index, which is primarily looking at whether school students are at or above grade level. And only 25% is focused on growth, or whether school is growing students as expected or even better. The new system will only have two components, and that's growth and achievement. You will see their formal names as we move along as well. So that's the grow and achieve. And when we get to high school, we'll talk about that third component, thrive. So all of our open admission public schools are supposed to serve the students who walk through their doors, no matter what their background. So if a school received a 6th grader who was already successful with some 7th grade level work, the majority of the school's score will receive a high grade, even if that student regressed, because that student was already a bit accelerated. Now, if a school received a 6th grader who was performing at the 1st grade level and managed to get that student to be successful on 4th grade work, it's an increase in 3 grade levels in 1 year. The bulk of the school score would be low because the student wasn't at grade level, even though the school had made tremendous growth with a student. So rather than having the majority of a school's grade based on the level of the students that walk through their doors, something over which schools have very little control, the new system prioritizes how well the schools help their students to grow, something that they do have control over. Being proficient or at or above grade level is still very important, however, which is why 46% of a school's score will be based on that proficiency. Additionally, although the new grading system says elementary/middle school, this is the system that will be used for any school that does not have a cohort graduation rate. So, sometimes we have schools, a new school may open and it may transition. And so, if it's a high school, it may start at 9th or 10th graders and add an additional grade each year. So it will be graded on the same scale that you saw that any other K-8 scale would be graded on. Only those two components in the growth and the achievement area. Although this doesn't impact many schools in our context right now, when a new high school opens up and is growing by adding 1 grade at a time, this new system avoids any unintended negative impacts that can happen under the current accountability system. For example, like not having a cohort graduation rate. The current system for high school has 6 components. So high school is currently a lot of fun. We have these various indicators, ACT work key, strength of diploma, cohort grad rate, as well as the growth index and the assessment index. And so in the current system, growing high school students only makes up 12.5% of the school's score, which is one of the components over which it has the most control. In the new system, growth will account for 42% of a high school score. Now, high school performance on the LEAP, which is assessed in some core classes like Algebra 1, Geometry, English 1, English 2, Biology, and U.S. History, will now be worth 58% of a school's score, 42% for growth, and 33% for proficiency. In comparison with the current 25% assessment index and the growth index at 12.5%. Although the Thrive percentage, as you can see here, is of the SPS score is smaller, the new system removes some inconsistencies in the current formulation. For instance, schools whose students are on the TOPS University pathway, a pathway that is guided towards directing students to a 4-year university, are currently able to use the work keys scores, tests intended for students on a career pathway after high school, when determining their school performance scores. And so that's not really giving you a true picture of what's happening in that school across all of the scholars in that building. Under the new system, students on the TOPS University pathway will be scored based on their ACT or SAT performance, tests directly intended for college-bound students, while WorkKeys performance will be used only for students on a TOPS Tech or Jumpstart diploma. These are students who are planning to go into a career or a 2-year technical community college. As mentioned on the other slide, if a school doesn't have a cohort graduation rate, then it will use the formula that only looks at just the 2 components of grow and achieve. Now, what is exactly being graded in our new upcoming revised system? The new system looks at 9 components for schools without a cohort grad rate, and 12 components for high schools that are fully built out, and weights each one of them equally. So each component is shown as a percentage of students who hit that particular target or metric. In the growing or growth section, it's all about what percentage of students are growing, what percentage of students are meeting growth targets in English, in math, and in learning English, that if they are an English language learner. Additionally, how is the school helping the lowest performing 25% of its school at meeting their math and their English targets? So looking at that bottom 25% of the school, schools can be rewarded as well, and their success can be shown on their scorecard of how they're helping improve the outcomes for their lowest performing students. In the proficient or achieve section, it's about what percentage of students are at or above grade level in math, English, science, and social studies. And once again, these will be reported all as percentages. And in the thriving or the thrive section, there are 3 different components. There's the cohort grad rate, which represents the percentage of high school students that graduate within 4 years. Then there's a readiness that's shown on a nationally recognized exam. Most commonly here in our state, that's the ACT. It could be the SAT as well, or some other nationally recognized exam. For students on the TOPS University pathway, that ACT score would have to be a 20 or above, or a 1040 or above on the SAT. For students on TOPS Tech Jumpstart pathways, that could be a WorkKey certificate of gold or platinum. The last part of the Thrive section is acceleration, meaning that students are more than prepared for their chosen future, whether college or career, because there are some students who want to jump into a career and work while they're in college, and they can take advantage of all the opportunities that are offered across a lot of our high schools in our district. So that could be a combination of receiving an ACT score of 20 or above with a higher math or English sub-score, or earning an AP or International Baccalaureate or CLEP score high enough to receive college credit, or even passing dual enrollment college classes with C or better, or getting advanced industry-based credentials, or earning a basic bundle of credentials that, when combined, place students ahead when entering the workforce. Additionally, schools receive additional points if at least 25% of their students who get an advanced industry-based credential or basic bundle also complete an internship or an apprenticeship. And so that means things will be very different for our high schools and the way that they support students in their academic career. So this slide just lists some of the takeaways that our portfolio team just wanted to point out as they were kind of analyzing the data and the information that we have received so far from the state. And just from what you shared, I mean, you see that growth is more heavily weighted. It has more indicators than any other box as well, and that is big. Not long ago, our school board voted for us to revise our accountability weights into a local accountability formula, because we knew that the current model of our school performance scores didn't value growth enough. And so that was really a lot of work that went into there, a lot of engagement. And now with the revised system, you still have grow, and you see that it's represented by the multitude or majority of the categories. And that's really one of the biggest takeaways that I like to point out. And also, one more is that last bullet. A high school's performance on elite represents approximately 2/3 of their SPS score. This is very different from our current system. And so that means high schools will have to work even harder to make sure they're improving those academic outcomes in those core subject classes. Now, the tricky part, setting the grading scale in the new accountability formula. So let me just start with the end in mind. Eventually, the letter grade scale will look like what you see on your right there, something that you're probably very familiar with if you ever went to a school and received a report card or a grade on a test. But the initial grading scale, which is being set right now, the state plans to use this plan that you see on the left-hand side. So simulated transitional scores used to make these cut ranges will be based on a curve, where, and we've already had this data. The state looked at 2023 data as well as recent 2024 data. And based on the 2024 data, that's what they set the actual beginning grading scale with, where the top 10% of all schools across the state will earn an A, and then you see the next 20% will earn a B, and next 40% will earn a C, and so forth and so on, with the bottom 10% earning an F. And so the state will continue to, once at least half of the state schools earn at least an A or a B, then the state will increase the lower cut scores by 5 points, raising the bar to earn the actual letter grades. And then the state will continue to do this until the grading scale represents a 10-point system that we're all familiar with, where 90 to 100 would be an A, 80 to 89 would be a B, and so forth and so on. So as of last time I checked my email, the state has not yet released the grading scale for the new system. It has, however, released a simulated grading scale based on the 2023 performance, which is on the right-hand side of the screen. To show how these percentages compare to the current ones, the current grading scale is shown on the left. And so that's kind of small, but if you can see, like, for instance, I'm just looking at the high school, the letter grade scale for an A is 53.6% to 100% currently. And that represents the window where 10% of our schools across the state, the top 10% of the schools across the state, based on the curve that I discussed on the previous slide. The new grading scale is not a novel idea in the way that this is being developed. Has strong similarities to the ones from some nearby states like Florida and Mississippi. And so both of those states did present to the State Department at a BESI meeting on their accountability system. Now, the fun begins. The new accountability system will be implemented in the fall of 2026. So that's when we'll see some brand new letter grades based on this new scale. But it'll be based on data from next school year. So schools right now are preparing to make changes, especially around our high schools, the way they support students and engage students academically, and also when it comes to career and technical opportunities as well. So the state intends to release SPS scores using the current methodology when it releases the old one, the ones under the new system in the fall of 2026. And those are just sunset scores, just so that we can have for data analysis to see how we can our schools are performing, and also help us make deeper analysis on comparing the two systems. How do we look as a state under the new system? So this is based on school year 22-23 data, and this is what the new accountability scorecard looks like when completed for the entire state using the information from that school year. And you can see the average score was a 41.2. And each one of these indicators are weighted the same, exactly the same. What about NOLA-PS? Our average is pretty close to the state average based on that, based on the most recent data that we received for the 24 school year. And you can see that our letter grade was a C, which was a 37.5. And this is all based on the simulated data under the new system that was shared. So, and this is exactly what the accountability scorecard looks like when completed for the district. Same score, similar scorecard. It'll be exactly the same for a school scorecard as well. And as you can see, it's the exact same scorecard for the state. And just to just as a side note, the numbers here include data from 4 schools that no longer operate in our district due to non-renewals for not meeting and maintaining high academic standards. And one of the main reasons why I really want to make sure that we talk to the community about our SPS scores on the new system, because our scores will look very different. These 2 accountability systems are measuring different things, and so you may be, your child may be attending a school that right now has a B letter grade, and so I don't want anyone to be shocked in the fall of 2026 when they earn a C letter grade or even a D letter grade. I will say that most of these shifts really impact mostly high schools more than any others. And so you can see there's not a big difference when you look at all the schools in our portfolio. But when we separate it out by K-8 and high school, you will see something that looks a lot different. One of the things that you will notice where the yellow represents our current SPS system, we had 7 schools earn an A letter grade. But using the same school year's data, that number was reduced to 5. And also we had 0 schools earn an F on our current system. But based on the new accountability system, if it was in place, we would have had 5 schools that earn an F. So that's a different, very different. Now this graph shows a tally of the letter grades of K-8 schools that NOLA-PS authorizes. That'll be operating next school year. So then once again, the yellow shows the current performance based on 23-24, while the red shows the letter grades of what that same performance will result in under the new system. And for this, you'll see not a whole lot of difference for our K-8s, but wait till I go to the next slide and you see our high schools. And so this is a very, very big difference. So this graph shows the letter grades for high schools. The yellow shows the current year, the red shows under the new system. Same performance, same year, and you see very stark difference. There are fewer A's, there are absolutely not one single B, and the same number of C's, but more D's and F's. And so the new system, it will take time, and that time has already begun. Schools are starting to prepare and understand what their data is looking like. They receive their data, their simulated data as well. We've been engaging with school leaders, engaging with partners on how to make sure that schools are equipped to deal and handle and still show how well they're performing under, even though we'll be performing under, being graded under a new system. One thing I do want to stress, so even when we looked at the data overall, there was one school that went from an A letter grade, a high school went from a A letter grade, and it decreased by 2 letter grades on the new system, went from an A to a C. And so one thing we want to dispel, there's no cause for alarm. We want you to know that schools are adjusting and they're making those adjustments now. Now, additional information on the revised accountability system is available at the LDOE's website. Also, the state website includes a 1-pager on the new system, some FAQs, and also the accountability FAQs. And if you have any questions about the new accountability system and its use at NOLA Public Schools, please reach out to us at our We're Listening page, or you can reach out to me directly. And now, there may be a couple of questions. I know we need to hear from Representative Mena, so if you have any questions, if we can't get to you, we'll make sure that we, before I leave, you can get my contact information. I can answer any questions, and also I'll be here for the rest of the evening. Are there any questions?
Okay. I have a question.
Yes.
If you base the data on schools that no longer exist, how do you think the grading system will work for our students?
So when the state reported the data, they reported it from a previous school year. So when we get the data, those schools have ended their contract, but they're still part of our data and a measure of that performance from the previous school year. And the only reason why I pointed that out is because there were 4 schools that earned poor letter grades and the impact of that 23-24 data, but they weren't in operation or being operated by someone differently during this school year. So it wasn't about necessarily basing any information on just looking at our analysis of what actually happened at the schools that were operating in the previous school year, because we get the data after that school year is over.
Thank you. Thank you.
How will the new accountability score affect those schools who are up for renewal in 26 and 27?
That is a great question. And so one of the key streams of work for my team is to look at our accountability framework, but also recognizing that this is a transition year and looking how that will affect some, it has implications for policy, also for providing some transitional time as well, things that we can do locally as an authorizer. So we are mitigating some of those things, and we're working with other partners and other and school leaders as well to make sure we're brainstorming some flexibilities and make sure that we're not negatively impacting schools that shouldn't be impacted.
My question is kind of on the piggyback of what the young lady asked. It seems like we're going to have a lot more D schools. So now is the board going to start closing more D schools?
So
what's going to be closed? D schools, F schools, what are we really closing now?
So right now we've begun our initial engagement on making revisions to our accountability framework. Mm-hmm. Also, that will include a big part of the renewal process, our comprehensive evaluation, making sure that we're looking at more detailed information at the school level, because we all know that one C school and another C school, all C schools aren't created equal. All D schools aren't created equal, and that's part of the reason why we have the comprehensive evaluation.
My question is, are we closing these schools?
We haven't made that determination yet because we have to make revisions to policy and our accountability framework.
Okay, so you're telling me the goal is not to close the D schools as we did this year?
Well, the goal is always to close schools that are not meeting standards. And so whatever standards come out of that work, that's how we will operate as an authorizer.
Well, my question is, if a school has reached the SPS score of a D, is it in jeopardy of being closed?
I feel like I've answered that to the best I can, because we don't know what our new local accountability will look like until we work through and make sure we have all the supports built in for schools.
On the slide that you had about the accountability scorecard, you had the column about percentage of students growing, and you listed English language acquisition, as well as students who are showing growth, the lowest students that are showing growth. But is there anything within the new accountability framework regarding students with disabilities and how that's being factored into school growth?
Yes, that is a big part of it. We didn't get student group data with our simulated data, but if you go to the LDA website, you look at their accountability profile, the one pager regarding all this information, it's very detailed, and they are schools. It's really about the performance, and you look at those students with disabilities a little bit differently as well. And depending on their level of disability, they don't impact that accountability score.
Right, because they could be a high performance student.
Yeah. And
Thank you. Thank you. My question is, once y'all got the simulated data, did any of our schools fall into that top 10% of an A? How are we looking?
yes, we had, if I remember correctly, I think we had four A schools. And so it was, and based on the current data, we had 5, so it was only one change from that. Okay. And I know there are probably a lot more questions, but I do want to make sure that we respect Representative Mena's time.
So
I see, it looks like you have an understanding of specific schools and how their scores would have happened this year. Is that gonna be made available?
So right now, that's not public data, and so that's why you didn't see any school names or anything on that information. I'm not sure when the LDOE will, or if they will decide to make simulated data publicly available. Thank you. I'll be around if you have any other questions or anything else comes to mind as well.
All right, thank you, Mr. Simmons. And we do have, while we transition to Mena, we do have some QR codes that you can scan and leave additional questions and information for us, so that as we continue to have these meetings, we're able to include more information in our FAQs and through our presentations. And so I want to, while we transition, acknowledge that we do have some of our board members in the room, and I want to thank them for being here. Board Member Griffin, Board Member Parker, and we also have Board Member Zervigon in the room, and so they will be part of this process with us over the next year as we work to revise our CSAP. So with that, I will pass it over to Mena. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being out here and being involved in the process about making our schools better, making our city better, making our state better. Without you all, literally nothing else happens. So we have to make sure that we participate. The way that we participated this past Saturday was monumental. We had a governor who thought that he could just ramrod anything down our throats. But we showed him, no, you cannot, because the power ultimately always remains with the people. Got that little spiel out the way. So I always like to introduce myself to a new crowd. My name is Sean Mena. I'm the state representative for District 23. District 23 consists of Mid-City, Holly Grove, Gerttown, and a little bit of the 7th Ward. It was a new district that was created because New Orleans actually gained population during the last census. So whereas we lost possibly 6 seats after Hurricane Katrina, we actually ended up gaining 1 seat after the 2020 census. So that was good. I ended up running for the seat and ended up winning. So now we are here. I am a native New Orleanian, a product of the New Orleans public school system as well. Proud graduate of Warren Easton in 2000. So after 2000, I ended up going to LSU for undergrad and graduating with a degree in political science. After political science, I decided to go to law school at LSU as well, and ended up having the best year of my life. Anybody that knows anything about law school, you're not supposed to have the best year of your life your first year. So I ended up flunking out. So, well, the story gets better. That happens May 2005. What happens August 2005? We all know, Hurricane Katrina. Life is in shambles. But I ended up getting a really good opportunity to work for then Governor Kathleen Babineau Blanco as a policy intern, and then eventually worked my way up to being a policy analyst. During that time, I said, you know what, I want to go back to law school. So I ended up working during the day, using my lunch period to actually go over to Southern Law, to take a course, come back, work until 5 p.m., then go back to school 6 to 9, and did that every day for 4 years. Got my law degree. Don't clap yet. It's about to get bad again. Came back home, caught the first thing smoking, because Baton Rouge is not a great place to be. And then started studying for the Louisiana bar exam. Took it the first time, flunked it. Took the bar exam the second time, flunked it. Took the bar exam the third time, flunked it. Took the bar exam the fourth time, guess what happened? They flunked it. Took it the fifth time and then passed it, so now I've been a barred attorney in Louisiana since 2014. Now y'all can actually clap. But I tell that story to say that, and I always tell the youth whenever I'm speaking to them, that persistence always overcomes resistance. So we as a community have to keep that in our mind. We as people always have to keep that in our mind, because it doesn't matter what stage you are in life, what situation our children are growing up in. Because I came up in the inner city when we were murder capital of the world in the 90s, but I told myself, you know what, I wanted something different and better for my life. So if I could do it, anybody could do it. So that's really the main message that I wanted to bring out to y'all. First, I'll tell you all a little bit about District 23. Every Louisiana House of Representative district actually has to have roughly 40,000 people. This district has 42,708 people with 26,881 voters. It's 53% black, 37% white, 9% other, and it's 67% Dem, 5% Republican, 9% other as well. In the legislature, as you all know, I am one of 105 people. In Louisiana, we actually have a supermajority of Republicans. So therefore, you know, depending on what your political leaning is, that could either be a good thing for you or a bad thing. But if you're a Democrat, it's a situation where we are the minority party, and they actually have a supermajority, which means they have 73 votes. So with 72 votes, you actually don't need to consult the other side, and you can pass anything that you want. So that's the situation that we're dealing with up there in Baton Rouge. And I'm excited by the motivated voters that we actually had this past weekend, but we need to keep that fire and motivation going for in 2 years when we have congressional seats up, and in 3 years when we have state representative seats up, because we need more folks that agree with us up there in Baton Rouge so that we can continue to fight. And it's important as well that we don't just talk in an echo chamber, because yeah, it's easy to be in an all Democratic room and just preach to the hills. Yeah, that's easy, but we need to go out to those communities where they don't look like us or they don't think like us, and just show them that we do have ideals that can actually make their lives better as well. So it's important that we get out our message as Democrats in that regard as well. So I'm actually a part of 3 committees. I sit on Commerce, Insurance, and Labor. Commerce oversees all businesses throughout the state. So anything that makes money, energy from oil companies, you name it, they come before our committee seeking to have different bills heard. Insurance is obviously a big deal throughout the state. Insurance rates, whether it's auto or home ownership, is really making it difficult for our people. I mean, the amounts that people and the difficulties that people are experiencing just to hold on to their homes. Retirees are having to make the difficult decision of whether they're going to keep their house or just move. And it shouldn't be that way. People should buy houses and be able to, if they want to, pass that property down as a part of their legacy. But people in our communities are having to make difficult decisions. So as a part of the insurance committee, we're going to be bringing bills that we hope will alleviate the difficulties that folks are having out here. But, you know, the corporations have to do their part too. They can't just advertise and talk about Jake or that duck and still be charging us out the wazoo. So that's not fair. And labor, I also sit on that committee, and usually that's probably the worst committee up there, to be honest with you, because it's just nothing but folks who want to take away the rights of labor unions. And as a person whose father was in a labor union, and my mother was in the teachers union as well. She was a 25-year teacher at Warren Easton before Hurricane Katrina. I deeply believe in the power of unions. So one of the successes that I had last legislative term was passing a bill to remove the term moral turpitude from licensing standards. Now, y'all are probably wondering what moral turpitude is. It's not even defined under our law. But they use those 2 words to block people from potentially being able to get licenses to better themselves, to better their families, better their communities, just because of a mistake that they made maybe some years ago. So through working with a few organization groups, I was able to get that passed, and that's going to hopefully make a big difference in our community for years to come. As a party, we did oppose the summer feeding program, the cuts that Governor Landry was trying to propose, so we were able to actually get that back into the budget, so that was a big deal. We did fight to defend the rights of women and families to make informed health care decisions for themselves. And we did oppose the Constitutional Convention, which led to the results that we just had this past Saturday. So, looking forward to this 2025 legislative session, I do have a few bills that I proposed. The first one is HB 587, which deals with gaming revenue. Everybody has seen those online sports betting commercials. They've literally just been inundated with us since we actually approved online sports betting in our state. Whether you agree with it or not, I think, I believe in freedom. If you want to actually spend your money on that, go ahead and knock yourself out. But I do believe there need to be some guardrails. And something that I'm looking forward to doing is actually increasing the tax on online sports betting, because currently 15% of the monies from online sports betting go to the Louisiana Early Childhood Education Fund. So my thing is, why not 30%? So if they're going to come here and take money from our youth, they might as well have to give some of that back so that we can educate our babies. So that's one of the bills that I'm going to be working on. I'm also going to be working on another bill dealing with economic development and also making sure that people who made mistakes in their previous life are able to get back to work and contribute to our society as a whole. Basically, right now, to be a licensed ambulance driver or just be licensed to work in an ambulance, period, there are certain crimes that are enumerated that you can't actually have been convicted of and come back home and be able to work in that industry. The bill that I'm going to introduce basically removes that barrier and says that, you know what, the employer has the right to decide if they want to hire somebody with that previous incarcerated background or not. So I think that will be something positive for our community that can get folks back to work, because we worry about crime, we worry about public safety, we worry about our communities. Well, the way that we can improve that is making sure that our young men and women can actually have good paying jobs. So that's one of the most important things that I care about, and one of the policies that I'm always going to champion throughout my tenure. I got 3 other bills that I had, because this is a fiscal session. So basically what that means, every odd year we have a fiscal session, whereas every even year it's just a regular session. So during a regular session, you can introduce 50 bills if you want to. But during a fiscal session, you're actually limited to being able to introduce 5. So the third one that I have deals with the RTA board, basically dealing with the makeup and the duties and training of board members. It's kind of a cleanup bill dealing with something that RTA was dealing with last year. So I've been meeting with the president over there, Lona Hankins, and trying to make sure that we can make RTA what it should be, because RTA should be able to get our young men from wherever they live to wherever they have to go to work on time, because most of the shift work outside of Orleans Parish, that starts at 6 a.m. and we got to have buses that are running to be able to actually get them to their places of employment. So that's one of the things that I plan on working with RTA with as well. I did file a bill related to the HBCU Advisory Council. Basically, since Southern University kind of had a reorganization, we needed to be able to put Southern University into the statute, since they actually have a chancellor now. So that's just a cleanup bill as well. And then the last bill that I have is a notice of warrant of arrest. Basically, if somebody has a failure to appear, what they do, and it sounds archaic, they just send a letter to the insurance company that the bail people work with. And what I'm saying is that, you know what, we live in a technological. That's why she smoked. My legislative assistant, Victoria. We live in a technological society, so there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to send an email to the bail person, to the insurance company as well, to make sure that things happen faster, so that folks who are out here that they're posing a danger to the community can actually be, everybody can be notified in a more efficient manner. Yes, yeah, word salad. Anyway, so yeah, that's what I got. If y'all got any questions, please fire away.
Since Amendment 2 did not pass, I know there's been a lot of talk about trying to secure raises for our teachers and school support staff. And I'd like to hear a little bit about what you intend to do with your colleagues in Baton Rouge or from the New Orleans delegation to help make that happen.
Yes, one of the snake oil salesman aspects of Amendment 2 was that they were saying that would actually be a permanent teacher pay raise, and that just wasn't the case. And luckily we were able to defeat that bill, but it still needs to be put into the regular budget that teachers do deserve that pay raise. So I can say that the Orleans delegation and the Louisiana Democratic Caucus will be fighting tooth and nail to make sure that our governor does the right thing and make sure that we actually pay our teachers, because it's too easy for our teachers to just hop over to Texas and get almost double the pay. So if we want quality teachers, if we want to have our youth be taught by people who care, who can live comfortably and know that they don't have to worry about their bills, that creates a better environment in our schools, and everybody can feel better and be ready to teach and ready to learn. So I will fight for a teacher pay raise, a permanent teacher pay raise. You know, like I said, my mother was a teacher, so I believe that teachers and the paraprofessionals as well, especially because she was a paraprofessional, deserve that pay raise, because it is a profession. It is a profession that's worthy of respect, and I will fight tooth and nail to make sure that you all get that pay raise. But we need to make sure that we're contacting those folks in other parishes so that they're putting pressure on their Republican legislators so that they do the right thing as well.
Hi. So I know you said you're on the labor board. Well, I know our good governor passed a law that if there is a teacher, say a teacher, who was convicted of any type of felony, could have not been dealing with kids or convicted of anything, that their certification is being revoked. So I sat at the Bessie meetings and I've heard them list over like 200 people and revoke all of these people's teaching certifications. And a lot of them probably don't even know that their certification is being revoked because they may have an old address or anything like that. Is there something that we can do? Because right now we're fighting every day to get more certified teachers. And if we have our governor who's just willy-nilly taking these certifications away for simple charges that have nothing to do with anything that possibly could relate to a child or anything else like that, you know, how are we going to keep and retain those good certified teachers?
Thank you for the question. I would definitely say certified teachers are a big issue, because I'm actually a part of the teacher recruitment and retention task force as well. So the main thing that we are focusing on is making sure that we have certified teachers throughout our entire state. So if somebody is a certified teacher, we need to treat them like gold. But as long as that teacher didn't do anything that deals with children or directly affects the education of our youth, it doesn't make sense to not have them in our classrooms. So you have my commitment that I'm going to look into that and see if there's a way that we could legislatively, retroactively make that a non-issue. Because look, as long as, like I said, if it doesn't have anything that dealt with harming children, it don't make no sense not to have teachers that are qualified and ready to serve our community and give them that opportunity.
Right, if you pass the background check, if you've passed the federal background check that's required for you to become a teacher, I'm like, okay, so why are we overlooking that and going back and saying, oh no, let me revoke your certification? And then on top of that, it's not just that it's revoked, now it's publicized that your certification is revoked. So you now, when you're applying for a job, you have to check off this box when they say, has your certification ever been revoked? Yes, my certification is revoked. Why? And so now you open up another can of worms to now oppress our teachers and maybe not get a job.
And that's to me just anti-economic development. We want to make sure that we're creating an environment that people can be easily employed if they are employable. And setting up roadblocks and barriers just is not smart policy for our state. Thank you for the question.
I had a question kind of in tandem with the last question about your presence on the labor committee. So in addition to the governor attacking the ability for teachers to work, my question for you is what has been the conversation within the labor committee about making sure the institutions our teachers are in are also protecting their ability to work? Because I know within New Orleans there have been attacks on teachers for trying to organize, trying to fight for better pay, better conditions for their students. And I'm really confused about what that response has been like on the state side of things.
I can tell you, we have a chairman who is very anti-labor union, and we have a stack committee that seems to kind of fall in line with him as well. So you do have good fighters that are out there, like Peter Robbins Brown, who's up there fighting a good fight. You have teachers from the LFT, is that correct? Louisiana Certified Teachers, that are up there fighting the good battle every day as well. And we speak truth to power as the few Democrats that are on the labor committee against those policies as well. But the thing is, we have to go out and vote and change some of those seats if we want to see something different. And, you know, like I said, I mean, it's talking amongst friends is easy. We got to go to Broussard Parish, or Boyles Parish, some of these parishes where, you know, we might not see a friendly face, but be willing to engage in conversation with those folks to make sure that we can actually pass laws and have labor committees that actually empower our workers, empower our teachers. So that's what we have to do. And we have 3 years left. So look, if you want to hop in a car and drive out to Avoyles, I'll roll with you and we could go knock doors and let them know what time it is. But being, you know, it feels good to be here talking with friends, but we got to be with people who aren't friendly, quote unquote, and just go spread the gospel to them as well.
Brad, can I say something real quick? Because people don't even know who I am. Hey guys, I just wanted to take a brief moment to introduce myself. I'm the legislative assistant for District 23. So basically when he's not here and he's in Baton Rouge and he's handling business for y'all, I'm handling business for you in the district. You should know that I am a fighter, I am feisty, I do not give up and I don't play games about my district. So if you ever have any questions, if you need clarification, I don't care what it is. I accept text messages on my district office phone, like in the middle of the night. I'm always checking my emails. I aim to respond to everyone if it's an emergency within 24 hours. If it's non-emergency, within 72 hours. I do read your emails. I do see your comments that come in, and I do respond to them. So please, I do not know what's going on in the district if you don't let me know. So I'm here for you. I'm at your disposal. Please use me.
Thank you. Any other questions?
My name?
Oh.
My name is Victoria Downs, and I have a bachelor's in political science, so this is my passion. I've been in social justice since I was 16, protesting, organizing, grassroots, all that good stuff. So I'm here, and I have cards too, if you need one.
Beautiful. Come on, going once, going twice. So, all right, thank y'all so much for listening. I truly appreciate it. Right on time.
Thank you guys. I think we are done for tonight. Let's give another round of applause for joining us and Rafael for giving us a great presentation. Dr. Fulmore, do you have any closing words for us? And thank you guys. Make sure you use the QR codes to give us your feedback for tonight. There's also a spot on those QR codes to give us more questions if you have them about the state accountability changes, so let us know. And y'all have a great night. Drive safe.